If you're familiar with my channel, you will already know if there is a what the hell horror comedy out there, I will find it. It's kind of a gift at this point, and I have found many a strange horror movie that I have reviewed here on my channel. But I think today I might have even outdone myself, and that is saying something. But if you don't know anything about Attack of the Adult Babies from 2017, let me quickly fill you in. Attack of the Adult Babies from 2017 is a dark horror comedy. 3 family members break into a remote countryside house to retrieve secret documents, but discover a cult of wealthy adults dressed as babies inside with nurses as their caretakers. If you're new here, I go by Hordes, and if you're not new, welcome back. I talk about horror movies here on my channel on Mondays and Fridays, but as always when it comes to watching movies that I've never seen before, I am now going to go and watch Attack of the Adult Babies off camera, so that way if you too want to watch this what the hell horror comedy, nothing will be spoiled for you, because nobody wants to watch a movie that you've just watched somebody else from start to finish, and I keep it spoiler free here on my channel because nobody, and I mean nobody, likes spoilers. To keep this friendly, I am not somebody who will yuck someone's yum, but I do not want to be someone's parent over their partner. I am not the sort of person you want looking after a child, whether that's real or pretend. I will give them snacks and put them in front of a TV and call it quits.
It could go either way.
If you can't handle gross out horror, I would suggest maybe giving this one a pass, because when I tell you that every bodily fluid that you can think of that comes out of a small child is in this movie, I am not kidding. They're just in adult sizes. Like, we're talking full-blown adult men in diapers, for my Americans, evacuating their bowels for camera. Like, it's that kind of, yeah, if you can't handle gross, you won't like this one. The humour in this is very British, and the 2 lines that stood out to me in this that are perfect examples are, "I'm gonna cut you worse than a state pension," and "so you're not just the kinky masons," which is kind of a very accurate description of the group in this movie. Like, it is so British in its humour. There is this, like, stereotype that posh Brits are all, like, prudish in the streets and then thirsty as hell behind closed doors. And as somebody that lives here in the UK and is certainly not a posh toff, can absolutely confirm that every single posh toff that I have ever met is this stereotype. This movie is like the movie Cute Little Buggers, which is about ravenous bunnies. Great movie if you haven't seen it. But instead of, like, British countryside folk, it's posh toffs.
Limey, shagging, knickers, bother.
This has got to be the worst job that I have ever come across in a horror movie. And that is saying something. Like, I can't think of anything worse as an occupation off the top of my head. The main nurse in this is like a dominatrix in a black nurse's uniform who at one point has to wear a pair of aviator glasses with one lens punched. Like, it's a whole... she is the boss from hell, and that is me being very, very... like, this is the worst boss that you could ever have. And then you're working with fully grown men who have they want to be babies part-time. Not to, you know, I'm not to yuck someone's yum, but there is more to this that I can't actually say. I will say that there's some kind of, like, physical transformation that goes on. They don't shrink to being the size of babies. That would be weird as all hell. And while this movie is weird, it's not that weird. But let's just say that there are some physical transformations happen. It's, again, worst job in the history of jobs, and that is saying something. I have to mention that one of the adult babies in this is played by Lawrence Harvey, whose name might not sound too familiar to you, but I guarantee if I said to you he's Martin in The Human Centipede 2, aka the main character in that, you'll be like, oh, it kind of enough said, because Lawrence Harvey only appears in movies that are incredibly, like, polar diversive within the audience that watches it. Like, this guy will not take a film project unless it is like somewhere on the weird scale. So there's your heads up that this is a weird movie. Just look at its cast.
You are in for a treat.
I do think that the plot for this one is going to be way too out there for some people and way too weird. And the whole adult babies part of this plot is just scratching the surface, and there is so much more going on underneath that, like literally and figuratively in this case. But there is also a relationship in this that I can't get behind this, and I'll try and keep this in YouTube-friendly terms. There is a relationship between adult step-siblings, and as somebody who has a vile, estranged step-sibling, yeah, no, I can't get behind that in any, like, the whole idea of that, no. Kind of makes, if you've got a step-sibling, you'll know what I mean. The idea makes your skin crawl. However, if you look at the top results for Corn Pub every year, there's quite a few people who think this is a yum, not a yuck. So, it's gonna be for someone, it's just not for me. It really is a movie that is made up of just weird, divisive adult things that happen between consenting adults. But when you look at the setup for this movie, it did leave me with more questions that I didn't really get answers to. And that is really because it feels like they had about 50 minutes of this hour and 20-minute movie minus the credits, and then they had to fill it out somehow. They had to, like, on the fly conceive an idea as to how these three adults found themselves in this situation. Like, they just sort of, they're playing a board game when the movie starts, and then 5 seconds later, three of them are in a car and heading off to a location after two, like, men with really bad Russian accents decide to hold the family hostage. And there's definitely more going on than just that, but I can at least give you that basic concept. But there is an awful lot of fluff in this. Like I said, it's like they had the 50 minutes and then had to come up with stuff on the fly to fill in that remaining 30 minutes so that they could turn this into a full feature-length film. The effects in this are mostly CGI, except the makeup part in this, and I have to give a shout out to whoever applied these prosthetic appliances because they are seamless. Like, they are so beautifully applied. If you didn't know any better, you would think that they were actually, like, somebody's face was shaped that way. So I have to give a major shout out to that because seamlessly applying prosthetics is not an easy thing. And the number of them that are used in this, like, congrats to that person. The deaths are gory and fun. There's some great moments with a revving chainsaw. The CGI is not brilliant, I will say that. But there is a big reveal with the CGI, and I don't think that they were going for my reaction, because when the big reveal happened, I was like, oh, it's so cute. Really, not the response that they were going for. Normally, I would have touched on a little bit about the ending as to whether I think it was good or not up to this point, but I need to include it with the practical effects section because I was not expecting, in the lead up to the finale bit, a claymation moment to suddenly start happening and a weird hallucinatory trippy kind of thing. It's not great claymation, I'll say that, but there's claymation in I'm basically saying expect absolutely anything in this movie because they are going to throw absolutely anything at you. In the end, I am actually going to give Attack of the Adult Babies from 2017 a 3 out of 5 stars because it is not very often I get to sit down here and say, I have never seen anything quite like this before. And normally when I'm saying that, it is by my boy Noboru Iguchi, who makes the most insane off-the-wall Japanese action horror comedies. So to sit here and say, I found a British version of that is quite the feat. You are either gonna love this movie or hate this movie purely based on the gross out part of it. And there is a lot of gross out in this. If you like trauma movies, like the gross and gory side of trauma movies, particularly the gross side of it, you will probably like this movie. because it's kind of that, but with a very different sense of humour. But my opinion isn't the only one that matters, which begs the question, should you personally watch Attack of the Adult Babies from 2017? If you like your horror flavoured with posh Brits, heists gone wrong, kinks that you don't often hear about, chainsaws, really cute massive monsters, or anything that is listed here, you will probably like Attack of the Adult Babies from 2017. Before we wrap up though, I very quickly want to say I know that there are quite a few fans of cryptids here within the Horde, and this is completely unsponsored. I wish this brand knew who I was. But the cardigan that I am wearing today is by a little brand called Steady Hands, and they have an entire collection that is just cryptids. The one that I am wearing today is the Bigfoot cardigan. He's also on the back as well in massive version. So if you are a fan of cryptids and you want something that's just like a little bit different, but incredibly comfortable, check out this brand. I will leave them linked in the description bar. And like I said, completely unsponsored. But sometimes I find things that I'm like, oh, the Horde will probably like this, and I just felt like sharing it. So there you have it, my initial thoughts and my review for my first time watching Attack of the Adult Babies from 2017. If you've also seen this movie, I would love to know what your thoughts and opinions are on it down in the comments section down below. And if you are interested in watching this movie, as I always do, I will leave a link in the description bar below the video to justwatch.com, where you can find out where it is streaming in your country. If you would like to know where else you can find me, I am also over on Instagram and Letterboxd at HordesOfHorror, where I post about every single horror movie that I watch, not just the ones that I talk about here on YouTube. But speaking of YouTube, I'll be back on Friday, and this time it is time for another list video again. Back in November, I talked about my favourite horror movies, and there is another way to get to know a fan of horror, and that is to get them talking about the movies that they didn't like. So it is time to talk about 8 horror movies that I gave 1 star or less. So until next time, bye.